to my motto, nothing's ever holding back.
Welcome back to the Lone Road iRacing podcast. I'm your host, Guy Robertson, and today we're going somewhere a little uncomfortable because this week I unfortunately have had to file 2 reports on iRacing. Not for clumsy mistakes, not for lap 1 chaos, not for netcode did me dirty. No, these were actually deliberate. One driver chose to take me out during a race, and another waited until after the checkered flag to exact their revenge. Now, let that sink in for a moment. The race is over. Nothing to gain, nothing to lose, and yet still the need to hit back. So today's episode is about one thing. Why do iRacers see red? What flips that switch? What turns a competitive driver into someone willing to risk their account just to prove a point? And more importantly, if you've ever felt that anger rising, what can you do about it? And yes, we're also going to look at what iRacing themselves could do better to help drivers before it gets to that red point. Then later, our iRacing Agony Uncle returns with another listener great question. Should I join a league, and what are the real benefits? So here we go, let's get into it. Let's rewind the tape. You're in a race, you practiced, you qualified well, and you're in the zone. And then contact. Maybe it's a dive bomb, maybe it's a squeeze, or maybe it's just poor awareness. But in that split second, your brain doesn't process it as a racing incident. It processes it as, that was done to me. And that's where it all starts. Because psychologically, we're not wired for neutral interpretation under stress. You're wired for threat detection. And in that moment, your brain goes, that cost me positions, that ruined my race, or that driver is incompetent, or worse, intentional. And here's the key. You don't just feel frustration, you feel injustice. And injustice is fuel. That's when the emotional engine starts revving. There's actually a term for this. And bear with me here. The word is amygdala hijack. That's when the emotional part of your brain overrides logic. And in sim racing, it happens really fast. Because your heart rate is already elevated. Your focus is intense. And your ego is invested in the result. So when something goes wrong, logic buggers off. And emotion takes its place. And suddenly you're thinking, I'm not letting them get away with that. They deserve this. Or I'll just give them a little tap. But we all know there's no such thing as a little tap in anger. And that's how retaliation begins. Not as a plan, but as a reaction. Let's break this down properly, because this is where it gets interesting. Number 1, loss of control. Racing is all about control. When someone takes that away from you, your brain wants it back. Retaliation feels like regaining control. Point 2, ego protection. You don't just lose positions, you lost status, and your brain wants to repair that. And it comes up with things like, I won't be disrespected. Point 3, instant justice syndrome. There's a belief that if I don't do something now, nothing will happen. Even though we know the protest system exists, in that moment it feels too slow and you want instant karma for that individual. Point 4, misjudgment. Sometimes drivers generally believe they hit me on purpose first, even when they clearly didn't. So retaliation becomes justified in their minds. And point 5, emotional carryover. Bad race before, bad week, low I rating spiral, and suddenly this one incident becomes that final straw. Let's bring this to life with the 2 reports I mentioned earlier. Incident 1 was at Alton Park in the FF 1600. Basically, there was somebody in front of me who was catching up, drove themselves off the track just before Shellow's corner in the sweeping left-hander. They slowed down a little bit, but then rejoined the track and T-boned me square on. And that was a 3.7k iRacer with 14 years of experience on iRacing. I'm not going to mention names, but in my mind, that person has been on the service long enough to understand how to rejoin and not just disconsider their fellow iRacers. So that driver made contact with me for no apparent reason. I was catching him up with not even race before. I didn't recognise the person at all. Now, the second report was completely different. This one was again in the FF 1600, but this time on a Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. This particular driver was a back marker who we'd caught up, and I was in P3 at the time. So they'd let P1 through. P2 had struggled for some reason to get round the individual, and then eventually I was faced up to the exhaust nearly to the back marker who was clearly getting a blue flag. So I took my time. I didn't want to lose my third place, so patience kicked in on a few more corners until there was a long straight coming towards the end of the lap. And as I caught up with this particular driver, he started weaving and blocking me for, again, no apparent reason. So I mentioned to the driver about a blue flag and would he mind moving off the racing line or even to one side so I can easily pass and not wreck both of our races. That didn't happen for another lap, and eventually he just yielded, but that cost me at least 5 or 6 seconds to potentially a second place. And there was still more to come. The race finished. I slowed down just after the pit exit following P1 and P2, and then this particular driver just decided he was going to total me. as I was nearly 0 miles per hour and they were full on 60 or 70 miles per hour after the race had finished. So that gives you the 2 insights into why I reported both drivers this week. We're going to be right back now after we've heard from this week's sponsor, Outlap. We're having a quick pause here to mention our sponsor, Outlap, who are supporting the podcast. Outlap is built around the side of sim racing we don't talk about enough. The focus, the preparation, and mental work that happens long before the race actually starts. It's not about hype or loud designs, it's about process, patience, and showing up ready, whether that's in the rig or stepping away from it. If that side of sim racing resonates with you, you'll find Outlap quietly ticking along in the background. I want to thank Outlap again for sponsoring the podcast, and the link to their sim racing apparel store is in the show notes. Thanks to Outlap there yet again for sponsoring the podcast. Now, we're going to move on now to try and understand how to stop yourself doing this, because the 2 reports I wrote this week that I mentioned previously, my mind was going, well, why would a 3.7k iRacer do that? And then why would a back marker with nothing to gain or lose also do that? So this is the most important part of today's episode, because every single iRacer listening has actually felt this at some time. So what can you do? These are all things we can try and remember the next time we're about to see red. The 5-second rule. When something happens, don't react immediately. Force yourself to wait. Force yourself to count to 5 in your head. That pause breaks the emotional chain. Point 2, or idea 2, shift the goal. Instead of I need to get them back, switch to how many positions can I still gain? And that's actually very hard to do in the heat of the moment. But that one shift could change everything. What about assuming innocence first? Tell yourself that was probably a mistake, even if you're not sure. That keeps the brain calm, and then you can look at the replay afterwards to see if it was intentional, or see if it was netcode, or just a genuine racing incident. What about zooming out? Ask yourself, will this matter in 10 race time? Probably the answer is no, because you'll catch this small loss back over your next 10 races. Now, this is another one where you've got to think about it. Accept the loss. And it's the hardest one to swallow. Sometimes your race is just done. And the best drivers, they accept it, they reset, and they move on. So here's some of the big boy questions then. So what could iRacing do better to help drivers in these situations? So we're going to flip the lens. What could iRacing do to reduce this behaviour? Point 1. better education, more visible guidance on what is protestable. There is no examples of it through any of the rookies, any of the onboarding programs. Real examples of bans that have been given out for those kind of retaliations, poor rejoins, and all the other reportable things in the code of conduct, with clear consequences as well. Behaviour tracking, a system that flags repeat aggressive patterns earlier. What about mandatory etiquette modules? Before progressing licenses, teach racecraft and emotional control. But for me, there also has got to be a faster feedback loop. Even as simple, your report has been reviewed, can quickly reinforce trust in the system, not waiting for an email that takes 48 hours plus to even get some notification. What about in-sim reminders? We all get pop-ups on our computers during work, even on your home computers and on your phones. Why can't we get that in the sim? Imagine after contact, incident detected, keep racing clean. A small nudge could prevent escalation. Now, that's the main part of today's episode done and dusted. I hope that's been insightful for you, listeners and viewers. We're going to be right back now with this week's iRacing Agony Uncle question. See you in a second. Right, time for this week's iRacing Agony Uncle. And we have another great question from a listener. Should I join a league and what are the benefits? The short answer is yes, but with purpose. There are loads of benefits of joining an iRacing league. Number one, cleaner racing, believe it or not, because you race those same people regularly and you don't want to have a bad reputation, so you drive cleaner. Better standards. Most leagues have some stewarding of some sort, some clear rules and also some consequences. And there is that feel of community. You're not just another driver with your league, you're part of something meaningful. And you've all got a common goal, that you love iRacing. Leagues are also another area for skill development. You learn better racecraft, become more consistent, and at times you have to have a race strategy. So you will become faster than you actually are in official races, and then you can take that back on the track. 5. Guess what? A bit about the same topic as we've already discussed. Less seeing red, because all drivers are accountable. But there are a few things to watch out for when you join a league, so pick the right one. Sometimes you get poorly run leagues. Sometimes there's a bias in stewarding if they're buddies of some racers. And they can be too casual, and also, the other end of the scale, too serious. So you've got to go and find the right fit for you. Final advice really about leagues: use official racing to build experience. Use leagues to refine it. So to close today's podcast, Today's takeaway is pretty simple. Every iRacer has a moment where we all could see red. But the best drivers, they don't eliminate the emotion, they actually control it. Because one decision, one moment, can undo an entire race or even get yourselves a ban. Whether that's a voice ban or a ban on the actual racing service itself. So next time it happens, whether that's your own mistake or another's, pause, reset, and remember the real win isn't revenge, it's finishing the race stronger than everyone else who has lost their mind. And I don't want to be spending my time making small little video clips of fellow iRacers who have just lost control. I'd rather be doing videos showing how positive iRacing is. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow, share, and let's keep growing this incredible community. It's been the Lone Road iRacers podcast. I'm Guy Robertson, and I'll see you on the grid soon. Happy iRacing.
Whatever it takes, we're racing, we're in the zone. Whatever it takes, we push hard, never alone. I'm in the cockpit, the engines roar, hear me now. We're racing circles, got a hustle made a vow. Chasing victory, it's all or nothing on the track. Speed is my motto, nothing's ever holding back. Whatever it takes, we're racing.